Hey everybody, welcome to Before College TV. I'm Harlan Cohen. Today, we are with three first-generation students from Franklin Marshall College. Hello, panelists. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
This is exciting. So, Hermela, Melanie, and Diamond, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. Now, we're going to talk a lot about Franklin and Marshall, and we're also going to talk about your lives. But more than anything, I want that student who's in high school, who's thinking about going to Franklin Marshall, to be able to see that they can get wherever they want to go. Of the three of you, did you ever doubt going to college? Was that ever something you weren't sure you would be able to do? Melanie, you look like that's a big yes.
Well, I wanted to go to college because I knew that, in order to get a successful career, that's what I had to do. And also as a way to, honor your parents for, all the sacrifices they made, go to college. But the closer I got to the application process and seeing how much of a financial burden it can be, and just, filling out all the documents, it was just became kind of unrealistic at some points. While applying, and I did doubt sometimes, I would say community college, maybe not that bad. And then maybe maybe it was maybe I could take a year off, maybe could work a little and maybe then apply. So I had options in the background just to, just in case that wasn't an option.
So it was junior year that this hit you of I don't know if I can do this.
Yes, I would say junior year during AC, what is it called? SAT prep?
Yeah. And were you part of a program at school that helps people prepare to go to college? Because I know that sometimes for first-gen students, there'll be, special resources and people who can support you.
In the school itself, there were mentors to help out, but I would say that I was fortunate enough to enter a program called Cooperman College Scholars, which is a program separate from school, which target minority students from low-income families. And the program basically itself helped me, they told me everything from FAFSA to what are subsidized, unsubsidized loans. They explained everything to me. They even checked over my personal statements. They guided me through all that. So I was very lucky in that sense for them.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It sounds like without that, it would have been a harder road for you. You're thinking it wouldn't have happened.
No, I don't know where I would be. Probably not F&M for sure.
Right. That's amazing. And that was the Cooperman College Scholars. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And how did you, and I want to hear from all of you, how did you get to even be part of this special group?
So I didn't know about the program at all, but I had a boyfriend who had a brother who was part of the program, and so he told me about it. And so I applied with him and went through all the interview process. And I was so close of not getting in. I was actually on the wait list for some time until last minute because one of the, you have to make, I believe, a family income of $60K and lower. And I just barely made the cut. I was right there. And so I remember they calling me and they were I'm not sure because you don't really meet this qualification. And I just made it. And I was so worried because I was I really need the reason why college was really out there was because of financial reasons.
Right.
For barely even making the cut to even sometimes receive aid or sometimes but not making enough to actually get a lot from the school. So I was really worried, but I remember they gave me a call last minute and I was super excited. And I think that just opened the path to all these opportunities later on.
Yeah. Was that what year in high school was that?
So the program looks for juniors in high school, and then you do a college prep program in the summer. And then towards your senior year, they start helping you with mentors and stuff.
Right. Are you still part of that program?
Yes. They provide mentors in the school. So we have at the college, they provide mentors to guide us and make sure we're doing okay. They have one-on-one meetings with us. We have group meetings that Diamond is also a part of. And
nice.
so they guide us and they make sure that we're doing okay. They check over like our study habits, if we're on track to graduate in 4 years. So, oh,
Nice. So Diamond, you're also a Cooperman College Scholar?
No, I'm actually a part of a different program called the White Foundation. It like helps on a different like level. It helps more on like getting low income students into boarding schools for like high school, and then
Okay.
like through that I came to F&M, and I kind of just joined the program because I thought it was really cool.
What program did you join?
So the Cooperman scholars, like they have their own like cohort, we call it. And then for my year, they started allowing people who are outside Cooperman to join. And so I kind of just applied to it, and then I was able to join. But I'm not a part of like Cooperman. I'm just a part of the cohort they have at school.
Right. So you found Melanie and you're like, I want to do this too? Or
It was like a summer program kind of thing. Like it was over the summer, and they were kind of like, hey, like we have this program if you're interested in joining. There's another program called the Melman Scholars, which Hermela is actually a part of. And
this is like a web of scholars.
Yeah. So we could apply to either one, apply to both, and I was able to get into the Cooperman cohort. So yeah.
Nice. So you're part of the Cooperman cohort. You're a late joiner. You are part of, was it the Dwight? Is that what you said?
Yeah, White Foundation.
The Dwight Foundation. Is that right? And you did that to go to Dublin school.
Yes.
Is that right? Is that a boarding school?
Yeah, it's in New Hampshire.
Okay. So the Dublin school, you're able to do that through this foundation. So the Dublin school is probably a pretty pricey school to go to.
Yes, it is.
Right. And you didn't have to pay full price.
No, I think every year we paid like $1,000 at most. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you got to do that. Right. Like that's the coolest thing, that you got to do that even before high school. Because I know, Melanie, you were kind of freaking out, like, early on, not knowing like how the heck you were going to do this. And then Diamond, you got in this earlier. I want to learn about that. But Hermela, I want to know about the Melman Scholar. Is that what that is? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you are. So the Melman Scholars was actually, it's a program that was founded by Ken Melman, and it's basically targeting underprivileged students that have faced adversity and have shown grit. And this program was more like after admission. It was I got interviewed, and then I got into it, and it helped throughout my first year. And it also gives a $3,500 stipend to do a project of your choice. And so, but prior to, I guess, my way to college, I went to Justice High School, and I was an IB diploma candidate. And the way I've kind of, in terms of college, I knew, and I set my mind to going to college. I knew one way or another, like I was going, whether it be like taking out loans or anything like that. But the thing I didn't know was more me going out of state for school. And I thought I was just going to stay. So I'm from Northern Virginia. I thought I was going to stay at a state school. I thought that's what people did around me. I didn't know about smaller liberal arts schools. I didn't know about private schools. I didn't know about all these different types of options, financial aid. I didn't know how much of a significant amount it would give. And so I used all the resources that I can. I think one of the things is that's strong about me is just being able to ask questions and just like gain everything one way or another, talk to people, because I don't have resources at home. I'm first gen and stuff like that. So I was just like, I know there's a way. And so I got involved in this program called Institute for East African Councils. It's a college preparatory program that gives culturally, I guess, in tuned advice and resources, and it's based in Washington, D.C. And in addition to that, I think without that program, I wouldn't be where I am.
Let me just jump in. So you are all involved in these really extraordinary programs, and I think it's amazing. And I know that when I hear you talk about the things that you're doing, it sounds amazing, but there's a part of me thinking like, how do they even discover this? And how do you even open the door, and how do you even know which door to open, and how do you feel confident enough and worthy enough to even put yourself in that place? Now, Hermela, it sounds like you, for some reason, always knew you were destined to go to college and live this journey. Tell me a little bit about your background, and I'd love for you to all do this as well, because I think it really helps when it comes to context. But I know a little bit about you, that you were born in Ethiopia, then you moved here, but just kind of set the stage so that if there's someone from a similar dynamic, they can relate.
Yeah. So I was born in Ethiopia. I immigrated with my family when I was just 2 years old. So I've grown up in America for quite some a large amount of my adult times, or this teen times. And so I think one of the biggest things, like, my parents had to make a way here, and we don't really have as much family, especially, so we first came to the Maryland area when we immigrated. We had family friends, but we didn't have like blood family here, so it was like a very scary moment for me. But my parents like persevered, as many immigrant parents. I know that's what inspires me, and that's why I knew I was going to go to college, because I'm going to be the first in my family. So I do have an older sister, but she has disabilities that don't allow her to go to college. And so most of my character is shaped by her and her experiences, my experiences with her, and me being able to assist my family with her medical conditions, in addition to school, in addition to all like I think it's a basic immigrant family thing where like you have to help your parents like sign bills or write letters or talk to people, things like that. I grew up with that, and so I think maturity came at an earlier stage because of my experience with my sister and me being her caretaker. And I think going to college, I think it actually, I guess I didn't like really think about all these stories and my characters, my character traits and things like that. But then as we were like writing the essays and stuff, which I'm sure we're going to get into, but that's when you start realizing how much of an effect it actually had on your life, as you start to reflect on these things.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you moved here, did you all live in, one place together? What type of work did your parents do to survive? And you also have a sister, you said, who has some medical issues. So was that also something when you moved here, your family came as an immigrant family with two children, one who had some additional needs? Just help me to understand that part as well, too.
Yeah, we actually, when we first came, stayed at a family friend's house. It was I think it was like a house, but it was a lot of people in the house.
Like how many?
And that's like maybe like around 10, 15-ish probably. I don't know the exact number. So my sister has epilepsy, and she was diagnosed while we were in Ethiopia. And I think part of the reason why my family wanted to immigrate was for more advanced medical care and just education. That's something that they emphasized a lot for me, and for my sister as well. And that means that this country has much more, I guess, helpful resources in that sense. And so my mom didn't work for a long time. She was our caretaker because we were young, my sister's conditions. And my dad he actually did work. There was a time where he worked like 3 jobs, I still live in low income housing, subsidized government housing, all my life. And so I think the Ethiopian community, the Habesha community in general, is a very generous and caring. And I think that's how we created our safety net as well, in order to empower and uplift us to where we are today.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I want to get into everybody else's stories. But I also just wanted to just tell you again, and this is something I talked about before we started our conversation, is just as first generation students, and also you're women, and as well. And we talked about this, and Diamond, you were saying you're African American, you identify as an African American woman, and Melanie, Hispanic, Latina. And we'll talk about that too. And then Hermela, you're saying you identify as a Black woman, and it sounds weird when I say that, you know, like I get a little strange and I'm like, you said you identify this or this. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did was to get that right, you know, to understand who you are and the best way to reference you, because the journeys that you have all had and continue to have, I think is so, it's unbelievable. It's so admirable. You have dealt with so many challenges. And Hermela, you were referencing that with the essay part, which we can talk about in a little bit. But just like what you all have gone through to get where you are without even recognizing just how extraordinary you are is something that just baffles me, you know, because like you're so tough. Like you are so unbelievably gritty and resilient. And so many first gen students, like they don't get that, right? Like, do you believe that, Diamond? Like, do you think you're really like gritty and resilient or are you like, you know, I don't know, man.
I mean, I guess it's like if I was to compare myself to like my mom, I'd be like, my mom is definitely more resilient and gritty than I ever could be. But I think that in the sense of trying to go from having this idea that I have to go to college because it's always been ingrained in me, like through my mom telling me how important education is, and also like seeing how she works so hard in a place where I know my mom is smart. I know that she can do so much more, but like she didn't have the opportunities that I have to be able to go and like reach that distance. That it's kind of like I do want to try the hardest that I can to use the materials and the opportunities that I have to my advantage in order so that I can look back on what I've been doing and be like, yeah, I'm doing this for a reason. Like I'm doing this so I can have a good life and I can share that good life with like my mom and my family.
Yeah. And I know, Melanie, you referenced that too. And I'm sure Hermela as well, the responsibility, the weight of your family, that they've sacrificed so much. So you're doing this not just for you, but you're doing this for all of these other people. And I imagine that's got to be heavy. Like, Melanie, how do does it get to be difficult? Are you allowed to be imperfect? Are you allowed to struggle? Or is it like the stakes are so high that you have to do this or everything will be horrible?
Yes, there are moments that could be very stressful. And sometimes it feels like I'm in college just to focus about like academics and I can't focus on anything else. I can't focus on like, you know, having a social life or, you know, joining clubs. But at the end of the day, I know that my mom, mainly because she has a little bit more of an educational background compared to my dad, she, in some way, she understands that, you know, if I'm happy, then they're okay with it. Of course, they want me to like graduate, and that's like their biggest dream for me. But I know that if I'm happy, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm happy doing the career that I want to do, if I'm happy because I'm in this club, and I know that every time I do a club, I always call my parents like, look, I'm doing this. And I know they'll always be like, oh, but how are your grades? But then I know that they're also very happy that I'm doing these other things for myself as well. So,
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, yes, parents could make you stressed at times, but at the end of the day, like I know that if I'm happy where I am, then everything's good.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the balance of doing things in addition to studying and being exceptional in the classroom, because you're president of the Latinx Prayer, and is that right? You're president, also head resident assistant, right? So I just want to go through them all. So if anybody was interested in any of the things that I mentioned, they can reach out to you as well. You're a Franklin Fellow Mentor, member of the African Drumming Ensemble. Wow, so you like to drum.
Yes.
You like to just like, do you drum in your room?
No, well, I didn't know I liked it until my first year. One of my friends convinced me to join, and then I've been doing it ever since. It's really fun.
I guess it's got to be relaxing just to like, bam, 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 right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Melanie convinced me, actually. Melanie convinced me to try it. I tried it for last semester, got cut short, but it is really fun and really stress relieving.
Right. So, but I would imagine. Then also, you are also part of. There's more. There's more, Melanie. I know Diamond's going to come on back in a second, but you're also member of the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, right? So your spirituality is important, and you're a Harwood scholar, which I think we had mentioned. Was it the Harwood? No, we mentioned the Cooperman.
Yes.
But you're a Harwood scholar too. Wow, you wear a lot of scholars. You're very into being a scholar. Yeah. That's exceptional. So of the things that you do, which of those things, I mean, there's so many, but which of those did you start doing when you were a first year student, and how did you get involved?
So I mentioned before, I think the most unique thing that stood out to me that I did was the African drumming ensemble, because I just did it as like a risk, because I never drummed in my life. I never really played a musical instrument. And my friend was just like, you want to do this club, like it'll also count as like half a course credit. So the course credit was very compelling. So that's kind of why I did it at first. But then I started building a really strong relationship with the professor. And I also, like in high school, I had stage fright, and I was just like coming to college, and I was like, you know what, I want to tackle this, and I want to get out of my comfort zone. And I know that for the drumming, we have to, in order to pass the course, you have to do like a performance on stage. And that was kind of frightening, but I was just like, I'll do it. And then I remember the professor asking me, Mel, like, do you want to lead a song? But like, to lead the song, you have to like go in front and like lead and do like a solo. And I was so anxious, but I think by joining that club, it just helped me in every aspect in my academics as well. Like just in, speaking, having discussions with people that I would usually not have discussions with, do well, like in presentations. Like it just made me more confident in who I am. So I think that's like one of the.
That was your first year?
That was my first year.
You got involved. And then Melanie, give us a little bit of a window into your life, just growing up, what it was like, middle school, high school, help us to understand you.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start, but so my dad came to the US around like 19, and I was born in Spain, but I went to live with my mom in Honduras. So while my dad was here, I was in Honduras with my mom. And so basically, like later on, like I moved around like 3-4 years old to the US. And from there, like, I don't know, like I just grew up, but my family, like we only spoke Spanish. So like, I remember elementary school, middle school, like I was always placed on like ESL courses because my English wasn't like the best compared to other students. And even when it was good, they would always put me with the ESL students, like no matter what.
Did you not like that?
No, because I felt that like as I got older, I could tell like they would put like the smart kids with the smart kids. They kind of group students depending on their level. So they would put the smart kids kind of together, the ones that they thought would go to a better high school or like college. And then they would put like the bilingual students, or like the Portuguese, the Spanish students, or like, I don't know, but like separate from everyone else. And then they had like the other students who weren't doing as well either. So there was like a lot of classification growing up. And I remember I would have friends that were like part of the smart students, and I would get so upset because I'm like, damn, like they separated us, and I'm with the ESL kids. And I remember I thought like I was dumb because I don't know, like I was always classified in some way. But I don't know, like I always had independence with like I always strive to do my best. And so like, regardless, like I still try to apply to the best high school in Newark, New Jersey, which at the time was Science. Like Science was known to be like the best high school. And so I just applied there, even though
you felt stupid, and I'm someone who's felt dumb most of my life. It's only been the past couple of years I started to feel smart, like truly, like I went to a high school where people were exceptional, and I was never as smart as the person sitting next to me. So I just assumed I was dumb. So I get that. But how did you even think that you were worthy of going to Science Park?
I I just kind of applied and kind of just put my luck out there. I was like, I'll just apply, but if I don't get in, I'll just go to some like regular, like high school, like doesn't matter to me. My dad didn't care. If anything, my dad was just like, yeah, just stay here at the local high school. Like he didn't care. But I like applied myself a lot and I was just like, you know what? Like, I don't have bad grades. Like, I'll just apply. And so I got into the high school that I wanted. And
Like a top high school. This is people go crazy to get into this high school. You got in.
I mean, it's Newark. I mean, the school system is not like the best. Even science, even though it's considered the best in Newark, it's still not like compared to other schools, like private schools, it's not like it's
Okay.
better. It's a better education.
Good. Okay.
But still, it was very competitive. Like you had to take an exam because it was a magnet school, so there was still like a level of competitiveness. And I got in, and throughout high school, I did feel like I was smart-ish. Like I would get good grades compared to like my other classmates, and so I started like, okay, gaining my confidence again. I was like, I'm smart. Like I'm capable of doing this. Like I could get into college. Like I'll be fine. But I don't know, like starting the application process, like my junior year, that's when, it started getting a little iffy again. I didn't know, even like going to programs, like I would go to different colleges to get a feel for the college. And like there would be so many students from private schools and all these big schools, and they had great SAT scores. My SAT scores were trash.
What were they?
Ooh, I don't even remember. The first time I got like a 10, what is that, 1,000? 1,000 out of 1,600?
Yeah.
Which wasn't great. I was really bad at test taking. I took it again. I got like 100 points better, but
Okay.
it was still not good. So thank you, F&M, for being test optional, because I would have gotten.
You didn't
Yeah,
submit your
honestly.
tests.
I did not. It was because I think for F&M, it's like the average is like a 1,300, 13 something out of 16. So my scores were not there. So I just submitted like 2 writing samples that I thought were pretty good.
Did either of you, did Diamond or Hermela, did you submit your test scores?
No, I did not submit my test scores at all.
And what about you,
Me
Hermela?
too. I didn't. Actually, my SAT story is I took it 3 times. I think I got like around 11. I think it was 1110 or something like that. And I did worse each time. So like the second time was worse. The third time,
Isn't
like
that the
it was.
worst? It's the worst when you take it again.
Yeah.
So I know that feeling.
Yeah. The SATs. I think though, like the idea of like using your grades and like your extracurriculars to balance it out is like one of the biggest things to understand as you're applying, and then also like looking for test optional schools in that sense.
Yeah.
Really helps.
Thanks for bringing that up, Melanie. And I think that knowing that you can look for schools, I mean, of course, the seniors or the rising seniors, I don't know any of the schools that are requiring SAT or ACTs, and some of them are postponing that requirement for quite some time. So it might be gone forever. So Melanie, we learned you then were overwhelmed by this whole process of having to apply, but then you found the Cooperman College Scholars, which helped you, tremendously. And then for anybody, and I know that I think Hermela, you mentioned you found a group earlier, and I want to get to that, but for a student who's in high school or in middle school, how do they look for those types of organizations? How did you find yours, or how do you recommend? And this is for anybody; it's open-ended.
I think briefly, just talk to other people. Just talk to your friends, students, professors, even people that are older than you, people that that already went through the college process. I know, if you're in high school, try to become friends with seniors who are going through the application process, who may know of any programs that are available. That's what I did at least. And I got a couple, or even just like going on Google and just searching up like opportunities for high school students, you know, or like mentorship programs.
Yeah. You mentioned before, so you mentioned that you're Hispanic Latina, or you interchanged the two. And before we started, I said, is it like a dumb question for me to ask what the difference is? I mean, I'll be honest of what our conversation was. And you're like, Hermela said that's not a dumb question, so thank you. There's no such thing as a dumb question, but a lot of times people will interchange the expression or categorize themselves as Hispanic or Latina. Can you clear this up for everybody?
Yes, I'll try my best. But Latina is referring to Latin America. So it's like you have parents who come from a Latin American origin, or you yourself were born in a Latin American country. So this includes Brazil, but it doesn't include Spain. And being Hispanic is saying that you come from a Spanish-speaking like country origin. So it doesn't include Brazil, but it does include Spain. So I personally use them interchangeably because I am from Spain. So I was born in Spain, so I'm Hispanic. But then my mom comes from a Latin American country. And so that's why I would say I'm Hispanic/Latina.
So there could be scholarships or opportunities for you based on that. Do you have any scholarships because of your ethnicity?
I mean, I know the Cooperman College Scholars is not specifically towards Hispanics. I know there's like, I applied to the Hispanic Fund. There's like this scholarship called the Hispanic Fund Foundation. I did apply to that, but I didn't get in. But I know there's a lot of scholarships specifically towards like Hispanic, Latinx children. So
Latinx, that's another expression.
Oh yeah. That's just like a non-gender term.
Okay. Thank you. I always like to, I love to know that. And we also talked about pronouns too, because I never make assumptions when having conversations. Diamond, I feel like, you just have not participated. I haven't given you enough attention. I want to give you so much attention, and I want to learn your story. So Diamond, we've saved you. Will you please tell us your story and include your mom? How amazing. I want to know about this woman.
Oh, okay. Well, my mom came to America about like a month before I was born, and she's really been my rock. Like I only live with her and my sister, so she's a single mom, and she's always just been working so hard. Like there was one point where she had like 3 or 4 jobs, and it was just like something that she was just like, I just have to do it. Like, I just have to ensure that you have the like greatest future.
What jobs? When she was working 3 or 4 jobs, do you remember what those were?
Yeah. So she used to work in like ShopRite, like at night. And then she used to be a caretaker for like the elderly. And she used to work at 2 separate like companies for that. And then she also had like on the side, she would just help other people independently. And so it was just a lot of strain on her. And I remember in middle school, it was during the time where I got into the White Foundation, and we would have like summer classes. And like, I just remember like she would get back from work at like 6 a.m. and then immediately have to drive me like all the way to Newark to go to this program, to have work for the entire like time. And then like my program would end at like, let's say 3 o'clock, and she wouldn't be able to pick me up until like 6, and then bring me back home just to go back to work again. And it was like, that went on for like a couple of months. And now that I look, like at the time, I was kind of like, oh, like this is kind of just normal. Like my mom kind of just does this a lot. She always made it seem like, oh, like this is just kind of what people do. Like when you have to make money and like you have to like survive and like put food on the plate. Like it definitely changed how I saw things, in the sense that like I never thought that we were poor. Like it was not even because of things like, oh, like she like bought me a lot of stuff. It was just like we always had food. Like she would make sure that like she never like looked tired. Like she would never like cry in front of us or any of those things. So I was kind of just like, oh, like this is kind of like, this is just regular. This is just how life is. And it wasn't until like it got closer to the time where I got into White Foundation, I had to go to boarding school, that was exposed to other lifestyles, in the sense that like I was exposed to people who are like, yeah, like my dad's the owner of this company, and like we go on vacation like 3 or 4 times a year. And it was like, oh, I did not know that was a thing. But because of that, it kind of made me be like, this is what I want. Like, I want to be that. I want to be able to like gain that level. I want to be like, Mom, let's just go on vacation 1 month. And like, she can take that month off and it's not a problem. So it was like little things like that kind of grew to me wanting to go to like a good school and like a good college. Like, we do have colleges here like Rutgers and like Seton Hall and stuff like that, but it was like I didn't want to stay in New Jersey. I wanted to like gain another experience. I'd already gone out of state for high school and I wanted to gain another experience in another state. So being able to go to Franklin and Marshall, I definitely have been able to like broaden my perspective on not only like the career that I want, but also just like the opportunities that I could get that I didn't know, since like I was basically living my life just with my mom and my sister. And my mom is a person who's like, she's just so incredibly smart, but she came to this country not knowing any of like the customs, not knowing how they act or like what opportunities are really there for me. And one thing that she really did that really helped me is she's the reason I got into White Foundation, in the sense that she was always thinking about it. Like, she found the program when I was in the 5th grade, and she was kind of like, ever since the 5th grade, she kind of put it in my head. She was like, this is something that you have to do. Like, I need you to get into White Foundation so you can get into a boarding school, so that you can get into a good college and get a good career. And so that's kind of shaped me through my life, in the sense of like what I want to do and what I want to continue doing.
Right. So you got into it's the White Foundation,
Yeah, it's spelled WIGHT.
WIGHT. Okay, the White Foundation. Yeah, that's amazing. And your mom has always been championing you. You know, we have to do this again, and we have to get her on here. I'm serious. Like, I want to meet this woman. I think it's remarkable, and I don't think people really understand. And when you're a kid, you don't understand, and now you do understand. And that's incredible. I mean, all of your families and your experiences. And I saw you all nodding your heads when Diamond was talking about just the journey and how hard your parents have worked to create these opportunities. So Diamond, are you still a neuroscience major?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's pretty intense, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to do with that?
Well, I want to go into the medical field. I don't know what specifically anymore. I kind of have gone through I kind of changed my major last semester. And so with that, I kind of changed what I want to do in the future. So I'm not really sure anymore, but
are you allowed to change? Like, I think that's a really good thing that you just brought up, is that I think a lot of times students, when they go to college, especially first-gen students, they have this very narrow vision of what it is that they're going to do that's safe, that's going to take care of themselves and the people around them. Was that true for you, and was it hard to change your lane?
Yes, that's actually exactly how it was for me. When I came in, I knew that I was going to be a biology major. I knew that I was going to be a surgeon. I was like, this is just what it is. I'm going to take my MCAT junior year so that I can get into a medical school and start right after senior year. And last year, I mean, the biology major, in our school, it's very plant-based. And because of that, I wasn't really interested. And so I was kind of realizing that I wasn't really interested in the classes that I was taking.
So you say plant-based, like you're studying like green?
Yeah, it's just things like we had things like, I just took like cell biology, which was fine, of course. Like, there's a little bit of plants, but like it's one of those things. But like, you know, before I had to take this class, which was basically like the majority of it was about plants, and the class before the majority was about plants. And it's like, I understand I need to learn it, but it's like, I'm personally not intrigued by that topic. And so I kind of was like, oh, if I stick with this major, like that's kind of just something I have to continue doing. And I realized that it wasn't something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it was really hard in the sense that when I changed, it was easy because it's like, okay, neuroscience, that's like still like doctor, still surgeon, same thing. But when I realized that I didn't really know if I wanted to still be a doctor, it was really shocking in the sense that since I was like in high school, middle school, was like, this is the thing that will make me the most amount of money, so that I can never, like, I will always have something to like back me up. Like, I will never be in a place where I won't have a job. I'll never be in a place where I don't have money. And that's something that like my mom, like, she didn't have to instill it in me or like say it to me for me to be like, this is something I just have to do. Like, I kind of just have to like get a job that will make me the most amount of money so that I can be stable. And I thought that with like, okay, with stability and with success, that like that would make me happy. But like this summer, I kind of just realized that like, but will I actually be happy? Like, do I actually want this job because I really want to do this? Or do I want this job because I think that I'll be stable and I'll have so much money that nothing can go wrong? So I'm kind of still like, I still want to do the medical field, but I definitely am still looking at like, there are just so many other options that I can do that don't have to be this such like uber specific thing that can still like, I can still be happy in and still make money in.
I think that's a real conflict of, I'm doing this because I want to help my family and support the people who have sacrificed so much. And I want to do something that's going to be safe, that's going to be able to repay this debt and take care of them. But then you face this crossroads where you have to make this decision of, what do I want? Mm-hmm. And this idea of doing it for other people as opposed to doing it for other people, but at the same time, it's for you. It's always been for you. And I think that's a really hard place to, I think that's a real journey. Before I want to ask you a question, Melanie, but just so everybody else who's watching this can appreciate some of the things that Diamond does. She's part of 2 executive boards for the African Caribbean Association and for the Minority Association of Pre-Med Students. So you're still connected with the pre-med students. But then the African, I say Caribbean, is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that sometimes people will say, say it differently, but that's, Melanie, you're also part of that group? Because you were excited. You were like all excited. Which group got you excited?
I was excited part of it, but I do support it 100%.
Because you all support each other. It's so kind. It's so nice. And then also, you're also a House advisor this coming year among the upperclassmen, and you're going to be part of the Harwood Scholars, which is that leadership program. So continuing to find places where you can find support. I mean, I think that's a common theme when I do a lot of work with first-gen low-income students from all over the country. And the biggest tip I have is find your group, find it in, I love that, Diamond, you found it in middle school through the White Foundation. You found that. Then was it Foundation, is that right? Yeah. So you found that, and your mom helped you find that group, and then that group helped you to continue on this path. And then Melanie, you found it through your group, through the Cooperman group foundation. And then Hermela, did you find anything, was there anything in high school that helped you in terms of like a group or organization that helped you with the college readiness piece?
Yeah, like I mentioned, the Institute for East African Councils
That's
was
what you said.
A cohort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
There's been so many mentioned, and that's great. And what we're going to do in the show notes, we're going to have a link to all of these. So we'll make sure that if you can get me that, and I'll make sure that we get this, because everything we've mentioned, I want people to be able to see these different opportunities, but at the same time, wherever someone is around the country, there are so many of these. And I think the hardest part is to say, I want to do this, right? Like, I want to do this, which is so scary to say and to do. Melanie, you have made a lot of changes. You seems like you're in a lot of different groups and organizations, and those different groups and organizations really have been a reflection of you wanting not only to do for those around you, but wanting for you, right? That piece where I was mentioning a Diamond, where you start to realize this is about you. Have you always been able to be focused on you, or was that a transition to also balance the two between you and your family, doing this for your family, but also doing this for you?
Yes. So, I mean, in the beginning, I was very like family focused. I didn't really, so I came in like, I'm going to be a public health major, occupational therapist. I'm going to go to a grad school program. And my friends know I changed my major so many times.
How many?
Uh, like, no, it was it was really bad. Like, it was really bad. I was going through like an identity crisis. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Because I like everything. Like, I don't know. It's just like, I always felt like I was that person who I was never good at one specific thing. Like, I was good at just a lot of things, but very little, like little things.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, okay, let me kind of go on this path, like very narrowed focus. But then as I kind of left my parents and kind of became more independent because they weren't like with me, it was easy to, like living with them, it was easy to kind of just listen to them and just kind of do what they say. But when I went to college, they barely called me. I sometimes called them like once a week.
Right.
But they didn't, I don't know, I was able to gain control of like what I wanted to do. And so because they weren't around, I kind of just did whatever I thought was best for myself and whatever made me happy. Because at the end of the day, like I wanted to make money in the future, but I also, if I'm going to be doing a job for 40 plus years, like I want to be happy doing it. And so I just, I took college as a kind of a self-discovery thing. I was just like, I'm going to do my classes and my academics, but I also want to do other things because I want to know who I am.
Yeah.
And just get this sense of purpose for myself. And so I'm doing a lot of mentoring work. I'm currently a mentor for first years right now. And I've been a house advisor also. This is going to be my second year. So I personally love mentoring students because as a first gen, I encountered a lot of first gen students, and being able to help them out also for like throughout the process and just being there to support them has also given me the confidence and like self-identity that I also needed for myself. So yes, like I just been doing me for now, but also like keeping my parents in mind because I also want to be stable when I leave my undergrad, but also really focusing on my happiness and just doing,
Yeah.
whatever I think is best.
And I think you need to be intentional about that. I think a lot of students are very narrow in what they're thinking, and it's a transaction to provide a life of security. But that piece of the exploration and the self-discovery, especially when you're going through your childhood, having to oftentimes really work hard and take care of family members and do so many other things that you don't really get that chance to take care of you. And from all three of you, I mean, it seems like you've really figured that out. Hermela, I was looking at some of the things you did in high school because I was kind of like doing a little research on you, and like it looked like you were like super intense, like successful in many ways, at getting a lot of outward acknowledgement as well. Tell us a little bit about your greatest honors, and then also, have you been able to take care of you and have that self-exploration? Because you seem like you're like, I'm going to college, I'm going to do this, but the you part, the joy part, I'd love to hear about that. So tell me a little bit about some of those cool things in high school, and then that part of how you found some joy in F&M.
Yeah. So to begin, I think my story actually started 7th grade in middle school. I was doing a project with my mentor. Shout out to Ms. D Hart. I know she's gonna watch this, but it's a FCCLA. It's called FCCLA. It's a family consumer science. She was my family consumer science teacher, and she went beyond a teacher. She really invested in her students and allowed them to explore different areas so that they can build themselves at an early stage so they can explore. And I think most of my drive came from that. I went to, like, it was a competition, so I went from states to national. So like doing things like that and participating in things like that is what helped me build my drive, I think. And then going into high school, I had a very close-knit group of friends. And I think like in addition to my friends, I think my self-drive comes a lot from my family experiences, from my sister, and being able to always be resilient in times of toughness. And I know like Diamond and Melanie were saying, like a lot of like the sacrifices, like my parents went through a lot, but like, and the things I'm going through, I think because I have the language, because I have the resources, I don't like personally, it's just like they went through so much more, that kind of Diamond was saying, that it's like I'm gonna use everything in front of me to do everything I can. And yes, there's gonna become failures in all of it, and life is not perfect, but it's that learning process, I think, that's emphasized. And so throughout high school, you said one of the moments, I think, so with the IB diploma, it was one of the biggest struggles for me. It
Tell
took a
people what
lot
an
out of
IB
me.
diploma. Tell them about IB.
Yeah, so it's the International Baccalaureate Diploma. So it's kind of like AP, but it's like the international. It's like those are like it's AP IB usually. Some schools are both. My school was just IB, and so it's an international based curriculum, and you have to take a certain level of higher level, and I think it's SL and HL. I forgot what the SL was, but you take it based on your interest. Like so, I took like higher level. English and things like that. So this was really challenging because I also went to a school that sometimes didn't have the best teachers, and also being first gen and not having that support at home. And like my parents aren't able to afford tutoring. They're not able to afford some of these like resources. And so I think there was a time where I wrote a letter and it actually like was named like IB dying. And so it was a letter to the IB coordinator saying how I don't want to continue. That was like a moment where I was just like, I'm done with this. Like I'm losing sleep. I'm not taking care of myself. It's just becomes really stressful. And also like mental health in a lot of first gen families, like that's not really, you don't know how to take care of it. I didn't know how to take care of my mental health until I went to college because I was exposed to these resources and people. And so I think also something just going forward is like, don't ever underestimate the power of a human bridge, I think is one of the biggest things that someone had told me, and I think really stuck with me. Because the people, like, because I know something, the next person can know it, and also like, you know, either become better at it or it can help them. And I think that's a lot of me because I just like, whatever it is, a smaller or bigger thing, I like share and also take in as well to help myself. I think that's one of the biggest things being first gen that you have to learn how to do is ask questions as well. And you can like, I know they say no small question is like dumb, but like it really isn't. I think it can make a big difference. I think throughout my college process, that was one of the things like always, I've had like my 7th grade teacher was like, you ask so many questions. And my mom was like, don't ever let someone tell you that. And I think that these experiences have helped me grow in these ways. And something, so when you had asked me to participate in this panel, I think I invited my 2 really, really close friends in college for that reason, because I felt like our story was able to, I guess, like come together in a way that can empower people, because these 2 are like one of the biggest reasons I succeed in college. And I think that that's kind of why our stories are really, really powerful. And I think the power of storytelling as well is really super important, something that I wasn't even open to, because in my culture it's like, don't tell your story, like keep that at home type of thing. But it's like the next person is going through the same thing, and so being able to talk about it is empowering as well. And so that's kind of what helps me a lot. Talking I love talking about my problems. I don't like to hold like, and it's something I definitely developed, but I think in terms of like growth and empowerment, so that's one of the biggest things.
How did you find the 2 of them, and how did you get comfortable enough to open up and share your story?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty social. I'm like outgoing and kind of introverted at the same time. I'm kind of in the, I think it's ambivert, if that's the correct terminology. Melanie, I met at our, like it was an overnight diversity program F&M hosts, in April after you get your acceptance. So we actually met on the train. So if we were going from Philadelphia to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is where Franklin and Marshall is. And we just connected. We weren't really sure if we were going to become good friends. We didn't really stay in contact over the summer, but like, I don't know, it's just like the naturalness of our relationship. It just built from there. And then Diamond, I actually met in our anthropology class my first semester. She was like, also it being it's a predominantly white institution. So she was the other Black girl in the room that I felt comfortable sitting next to. And I just like, it was my first year. I didn't know, like my high school was pretty diverse, all walks of life in it. And so being placed in a place your first semester, like I think it was an 8 a.m. class, if I'm not mistaken, my first class ever. And so we all lived in the same college house. And just the growth of our relationship. So as you can hear, like we're like involved in similar things. We are all housing advisors. We're all part of Harwood. Like these things grow because of like that human bridge that I told you about. One person knows something, the next person does it. Next person knows something. Like we just kind of communicate and create this like social circle that empowers one another.
Yeah. And when you talk, I can feel it. I mean, you could feel the connection and the energy and just the power. And it's a really beautiful thing to experience. I'm curious if any of you have thought of quitting. And I know that Hermela, you mentioned with the IB, you were thinking of quitting. And I also want to just remind people, earlier in our conversation, you talked about how you did terrible on the SAT, right? You did terrible. And you're an IB, you have an IB, what do we call it, an IB diploma?
Diploma. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I did get it.
Like an IB diploma, like that is I don't swear on these things, but like that's some serious stuff. I mean, like you don't get that by just being mediocre, like you got it. So I love that, like the tests that the contrast between the two. So, okay, let's talk about, there's two things, and I could talk to you all for hours. I'm so curious about, let's get into where you're at Franklin and Marshall, and we'll have to do another one where you tell me why you chose F&M, because it's very interesting, I'm sure. But I want to know, when did you think of quitting? What was the hardest moment for you in your college experience? And I would imagine everybody has at least one. You probably have even more, just given all of the things that you do and all the risks you take. Melanie, how about you?
Okay. So I think I hit like rock bottom when was it? It was my first year. I was feeling very confident. I was taking chemistry. And mind you, I did not have a good chemistry class in high school. I had no background. There were students there that have taken chemistry, and I was failing, and I was trying so hard. And I was taking bio too at the same time. So I was trying to have a social life too. So it was going really bad. And I was just going through things, personal life, like at home. It was just a lot. And I remember this one night, like I pulled an all-nighter, and they know about my all-nighters, but I pulled a lot of all-nighters. I remember this one night I had to study for my chem exam. The next day I had 2 essays, and I wanted to cry. Like I really just wanted to cry and just like call it quits. I didn't know what to do. And I remember, I think I called Hermela. I'm not sure, but I definitely called Hermela and Diamond, and I was just like, listen, I don't know what to do. Like I'm gonna be up all night. And I remember like during those times, Hermela and Diamond, they would always be like, Melanie, you got this. You just gotta push it through. Like you have this. It's okay. Like I'll call you in the morning, because I would always call them to say like, because I would always miss my alarm. So they would call me. Hermela would go downstairs at 8 a.m. and pound on my door so that I wake up and not miss my chemistry exam. They're like, you're going to do this. And they were just so supportive. Sometimes they will actually stay up the whole night with me. Even if they finished all their homework, they will stay up just to join me so that I don't feel alone in the common room doing homework by myself. And they helped me find ways, like, because Diamond is so productive. So I started learning how to become more productive because of Diamond, because she would finish homework so quickly and so efficiently. So, and Hermela, she was so organized. She had everything in her planner. So definitely, like, these two have, during moments where I just wanted to quit and just, I was too overwhelmed with schoolwork, they were there all the time. No doubt.
Yeah,
So,
they're your people, and you
They're
found your people, right? You found your people in the summer program or the April program,
mhm.
and then Diamond. Melanie, how did you find Diamond?
So I found Diamond through Hermela. So I knew Hermela, and then Hermela one day just brought this girl. She was like, "Oh, she's gonna join us to do homework," and I was like, "Okay, sure, like that's fine." And then from there, I don't know where we got closer after that.
Yeah.
Diamond.
I think of these students who didn't get to go on the April diversity retreat because of COVID, and these experiences that they weren't able to have. And I know that you're going to be a mentor. You're going to be helping them. Do you have any suggestions for any students who want to find connection but maybe didn't have those opportunities?
Honest. Ooh.
Yeah, anybody can jump in.
Okay.
Well, I'm also
Honestly,
curious, like, how do you do this? It's hard.
yeah, I didn't go on any of those like extra programs because like I didn't think, fun fact, I didn't think anyone would go. So my advice is that you should definitely look into them because there could actually be some really cool people who you could like really become good friends with if you go. But when I like came to school, something that definitely helped me was joining clubs, like joining, like thankfully I was able to meet like Hermela and Melanie through like other means. But for a lot of my other friends, like other than like just like knowing them through like Hermela, Melanie, and like my other friends, it was more like just joining clubs. I never realized the importance of like actually joining a club and like in a place that you really like. For example, African Caribbean Association really became my home. Like a lot of my friends are in there, and like it's just like finding a place that you actually enjoy being and seeing, like meeting other people that you also are like, wow, like you're actually a really cool person. Like maybe it's someone who you don't have any classes with, they're in a different year, but like through this club, you're able to become really good friends. So that's definitely like a way that I would say. And also in classes, like it can be kind of hard to just like be like, hey, like, do you want to like work on this? But it's actually so easy. Like a lot of people are actually very cool. If you're just like, hey, like, did you understand the homework? Like, can we work on it? A lot of them would be like, yeah, sure. And then that's another way to become friends. Like some of my friends came out from that too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. When it comes to being a minority on the campus, I think you mentioned that it's mostly Caucasian. How do you navigate that and find your people?
I think for me, being Black at FNM is a transformative experience, and I think it has honestly helped me learn so much, not just amongst non-minorities, but also amongst minorities. I was really exposed to a lot of different cultures, and being able to learn from those cultures really honestly has helped me grow in terms of being more open-minded, being more accepting, being able to share your culture in a way that's very, that's helpful and builds and bridges gaps between different communities. I think that also, like Diamond said, African Caribbean Association was our home. It is our home. So I'm co-president for that this coming semester. And so I think for example, to give you examples, we take museum, like we took a trip to the African Museum in DC. We have cultural pageants. Our meetings are kind of just educational about other people's, like I wasn't really exposed to a lot of Caribbean individuals. And so I was able to bridge that gap and learn more about their culture. And you just learn how to accept and appreciate the diversity within all walks of life, and then also how to interact with those that don't look like you. I think that's one of the biggest skills, because a lot of maybe the corporate world might not look like, people don't look like you all the time. And so being able to experience that firsthand, I think all the schools, I applied to 17 schools, most of them were predominantly white. So I wanted that experience on purpose.
When you run into people who are uncomfortable being around someone who's different, have you had to deal with that, and how do you deal with that and keep your cool?
So at F&M, we all have to take, for our first year, you have to take this class. It's called the Connections class. And it's basically like a lot of different like classes. And like for my class, we were talking about race, and it was kind of strange for me. Like in the sense of like, I went to a predominantly white like boarding school. So like, it's not something that's out of the norm for me to be the only Black person in like a class. But I've never been the only Black person in a class specifically centered around race. And that was the class that I was in. And it was hard in the sense of like, we would be talking about something that you would think that everyone would think like the same way. It's like, oh, this is just, human, right? But someone would be like, oh, like I never thought about it that way, or I don't really see how that could work. And it's more of just trying to, number one, just trying to be like, okay, let me just try to understand that like they did not have the same experiences as me, and they did not like have the same like opportunity, or maybe they're just so closed off that they were never able to like learn about this, and really trying, while understanding that like it's not like my responsibility to like educate the people around me, but also trying to like see that some people do want to learn, they just don't know how, and they also don't know how to do it respectfully. And luckily that was the student that I had to interact with. It was just like they just didn't know, and they didn't know how to get out of that bubble and like step into like my world, or step into the understanding that I had. And so it's kind of just like trying to see that like some people do want to learn, and like just trying to be open and show them like, yeah, like this is kind of just how it is. Like, this is like how this works. This is like, some people would ask about like my hair, and it's like, they really just don't know. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, this is what I do. Like, this is how I put braids in. It's like, move on. Like, now, like, I hope you can educate other people who ask you this kind of question. Yeah.
That's a hard thing. I'm a white male, clearly, and it's a different dynamic. And I think sometimes it's scary for people who have been around the same people and are the majority to ask a question, to feel safe that they can ask a question without wanting to offend. And it sounds like in that class, just in general, like you make it easy to ask those questions. And I think that it sounds like your foundation is that the people around me really are loving and want to learn. They just don't know. So I'm going to make it safe for them. Does that
yeah,
sound?
I mean, I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, people have, of course, failed me, but
Yeah.
I try to give people yeah.
There are some rotten people. I mean, but that sounds like when you do run into people who are just ignorant or hurtful, you have your people, you have your place, you have your African Caribbean Association. I know that we were wrapping this up with the time you got rejected, or the time you wanted to quit. That's what we were doing. So Diamond, did you have a time that you were going to quit, where you thought this wasn't going to work for you, or did that not happen with you?
It happened twice. So the first time it happened was at a similar time around like Melanie. It was first year. And I was just going through a lot, like mentally. It was like I had never really had this, like, I guess, like growing up, like what Hermela said before, like growing up mental, like health, and like having mental, like something mentally happening to you wasn't really a thing in African household. It definitely wasn't a thing in my household. It's kind of just like, oh, like you're feeling sad, or like you just need to get over this and then you'll be fine. And so like I kind of wasn't feeling at my best during this time. And I was really just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not really happy here. Like, I don't know if I should stay here. And once again, it really was my friends, because if I didn't have them, it would have been a lot harder. It was just like learning that I could just talk it out instead of just having to keep it in and trying to like preserve the peace. It's like no, you can talk about it to your friends and like they can give you advice and they can try to help you. Like I definitely realize that here where it's like my friends want to help me. Like they're not in boarding school. It was kind of like a weird tension of like everyone's trying to like get to the most elite school. So it was like you couldn't always talk about like, oh, I did poorly on an SAT without someone being like, oh, well, I didn't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that definitely, having that foundation definitely helped me, and definitely just having the understanding that like my mental health is real and the problems that I can have are real, and they're not something that I should just make light of. And it's okay to have them. It's okay to have like days that I'm not feeling the happiest. And it's okay of times where I don't think that I want to do this anymore. And just realizing that there are people around me who want to help me and want to see me succeed and do great. So that was like the first one. And the second one was just about career. It was just that what I talked about earlier, just like wanting to know what I really wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, mental health, I am really very open with that. And I have a therapist that I see on a regular basis. And I've really had a tremendous amount of growth, even in the past few years. I think I mentioned I never really felt smart. And I really never did, because I'd always beat myself up and not really celebrate the things that are worth celebrating. So I'm really a huge advocate of supporting mental health. Did you talk to anyone? Did you get involved with therapy? I know, again, that's not something that's typical of, being part of the culture of, oh yeah, you have a problem, go see a therapist. It's, is that something that any of you are comfortable sharing or that you took advantage of?
I could say a little bit about it. So I always thought that going to a therapist was like only for people that had problems. Like that's how my parents would say. Like if I told them I was going to therapy, they'll just be like, oh, like what's wrong with you? And it just like has a bad stigma around it. But I took a public health class with Hermela, and the professor talked a lot about mental health and just like saying how it's okay and that it's normal to have like anxiety, depression, like during your college years. It's normal. Sometimes, it's just not only stress. It's not only that you're sad. Like there's a deeper root of that, that's affecting you, and that's affecting your academics and your ability to succeed. And like, you're already a first gen, like it's already hard. So, I think talking about mental health, talking to my friends about mental health, and just taking away that stigma. Also, I feel like going away from home and like your parents not having to find out that you are going to therapy. Like I know FNM provides 8 free therapy sessions per academic year. And I was just like, damn, like I didn't take advantage of that my first 2 years. And I was talking to my friends, like I'm going, like, even if maybe I don't think I need to go, I'm going to take advantage of those 8 therapy sessions. Like they're free. Like why wouldn't I just talk to somebody about how I'm feeling? And so just taking that opportunity, doesn't matter if you think it's like a little, like don't like underestimate your issues, like really talk to people, really acknowledge what you're feeling, like don't put that aside. And I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about their experiences.
So for me, very similar to Melanie, I think there's also a religious aspect to my life. I am Ethiopian Orthodox, and I think it is stigmatized in our religion, and I think in a lot of Christian religions as well sometimes. I don't want to speak for all of it, but as for me, like physical health was always like, I guess, overemphasized in terms of like my parents, like physical health is just a given. But then when it came to the mental, it's just like, keep it in. And like, that's something I always grew up with. Like I just kept it in me. And I think in terms of when we were talking about like testing, I do have test anxiety, and I knew that, but I didn't think it was like, I'm not diagnosed with it, but like I'm just not a good test taker. And so I went to therapy to get test accommodations. That's what they require at FNM. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first time I actually like spoke to somebody like that I didn't know about. Some of like, he was just trying to get to the root of the issue of like, maybe it could be this or that. And they're just like, they just sit there and listen, and they have a certain guidelines. And I think a lot of what college is you don't know until you experience it. So it's just like you do it, you learn from it, you either continue or you don't. And I think for a lot of us, I think within our friend group specifically, that was what it is. We did a lot of things, good, bad. And then we either, like, you know, we just grew from a lot of it through each other. But then also something that I think is left out in our conversation is like, for those that aren't able to reach people, or for those that don't have that circle of friends, I think that's where therapy could come in. That's where faculty and staff at your respective schools can like actually really transform your experience. Being stuck in like your room, your dorm room, it's not really effective. And I think that's a lot, like being an RA, I think we call it HA, but an RA is like, that's where you kind of see some of that. And you have to be able to like step in really quickly and be able to analyze and see like, what can I do in this immediate moment? What help can I get? And then you got to also just, a lot of it is also, I think my freshman year, my biggest thing was I was always there for people a lot, both my first and second semester. And I was like, we were honestly like, a lot of us were sleeping at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., doing nothing a lot of the time. And these things helped us transform our experiences and build relationships with people. And I think, I always think like a relationship or your just interactions with people happen for a reason. I'm a big believer of like everything happens for a reason, and then you either learn from it and it helps you grow, or, you know, you just, there's things that just transform you in either good or bad.
Yeah. And there's a great Nelson Mandela quote. It's, I never lose, I only win or learn. And that mindset of no matter what happens, something's going to happen, and that something's going to inform me, I think really frees you to be able to be present and to live that. And I think that's clearly you've all made that shift, it sounds like, of really realizing this is as much for you as is for everyone else. And the things that everyone has done for you has really not been so that you can do for them. It's been about you being able to get to that place of joy and having that experience. And I think especially for first gen students, it's a big challenge. In all fairness, Hermela, did you have a situation where you were thinking of quitting or giving up? Did that happen to you at F&M?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an inevitable experience. Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome is really big. For me, I think it was, so we had a Halloween incident where so there were students that wore culturally like appropriated costumes to a Halloween party. I think it's not an F&M problem. It's just a wider society problem many times. But I think the way that our administration handled it, but I think, and we did we sat at a basketball game and it was athletes that did the incident. And so we shut down their game, and it was a lot of different variations of people that participated in this. And sitting on that court and hearing racist remarks, I think I was just like, where am I? Right. Like, what did I do? That feeling. But I think again, like, it was a transforming experience, like I said before, because the way people came together from all walks of life to support and advocate for this cause, I think that's a big thing. Also, our school is really small, so it's about 500-ish people. And
say that again, because the sound went out. How many people roughly? 3,500,
I think, around.
Gotcha.
If I'm not do that. I may be wrong, but I think through that experience, we are able to learn how to advocate for ourselves, how to talk with administration, how to deal with some of these feelings. And also, I think now we're getting a chief diversity officer as an outcome of this whole experience. And I know it's not one of the first times it happened, but I think it did create enough change to where our advocacy is going to go a long way for our future people.
What year in school was this year or a couple years ago?
It was our fall of our sophomore year.
Okay, so it's been enough time. And I think for people who are hearing this, you didn't go, you stayed, you were able to come together and you were able to create some change.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a, I don't know what that's like to have to face that and deal with that. And we hear about that happening a lot just in our culture, and just the connection, the community, the coming together, and also creating change. I mean, you're incredibly strong and brave, and you've been through so much. There's just one more thing. I want to wrap this. I keep saying that for the past 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to wrap this up. I love talking with you all. You're just, such joy. It's such light. I love it. If there is someone out there who's in high school who is starting on this journey and really wants to go to college, or maybe didn't even think that they could go to college, but all of a sudden they're like, maybe I can. What advice would you give them if you can give high school you or high school first gen student out there a bit of wisdom? Speak to them, please, so that they can hear you. And we can start with Melanie, and we'll go Melanie, Diamond, Hermela.
So a piece of advice that I would give a high school student would just be like, be flexible and be open with any opportunity that comes your way. And don't be afraid to take that step and to take those risks. Like, yes, you're going to be uncomfortable, but life is very uncomfortable. And just take that risk, and just be very flexible with yourself. Like, it's okay if you don't follow through, and it's okay if you jump around, but you're going to make it either way. Even if you have to go to a community college first and then go to college, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go directly there. Just know that you will get there, but it doesn't matter how.
Awesome. Diamond, what do you have to say?
Something I would say is definitely ground yourself in like who you are and who you want to grow to be. You are your own person. No one else can tell you differently. It's your entire life. You're going to be spending all this time with you, whatever career you want to do, whatever like line of anything like throughout your life that you want to do, you're going to be with yourself the most. So whether it be like mental health, trying to find your career, your major, anything, do it because you want to and because you think like this is what you really want to do for the rest of your life, instead of trying to do it because like your friends may want to do it or someone in your family may think that you have to do it. Do it because you actually care for it and because you just want to like help yourself.
Yeah, I love it. I want to add, and don't be afraid to do something else, like Melanie, who changed her major so many times, where she thought she wanted to do it, but then change. But I love that. All right, Hermela, what's your advice?
Yeah, I would say discipline and balance are the two words I would say, because one, like both of them just said, nothing is easy. Nothing will come easy. We are first gen, or whoever you are entering the college or whatever it might be. Just stay grounded in your true values, and also balance. Like, there's so many things that are going to come your way. Learning to be adaptable is one of the biggest things, especially in college. And again, like, reach out to people, ask questions, and don't ever underestimate any part of you, and just stop comparing yourself to anybody.
Yeah, I love that. The questions, ask questions. You are all so open to answering questions. I just want everybody to understand how willing you are to answer questions. I know we've included your social media. If a student has a question, are you open to them reaching out to you? Like, legit, and like you're like, it's not weird. It's not like if somebody has a question, you want them to, right? Like, you love that. It makes you feel good when people ask you questions, right? And you don't judge them. You just want to help. Is that true, right? I know it's like, I'm so ridiculous with this, but there's so many people who are like, oh, I shouldn't ask, or, oh, I don't want to ask, but you're just that person in the future. Like, whoever it is who wants to ask, this is your future you. And you're willing to answer those questions. All right. You have all been so incredible. I'm going to wrap this up. Like, we're officially wrapping it. Is there anything else that you need to share? Is there any damage control? Is there anything where you're going to be like, oh, I need to clarify this or that? Is there anything that we can do now while we're together? I can't think of anything, but I always give everyone an opportunity.
Not anything damage control, but I want to give a shout out to friend Crystal.
Yes, Crystal.
Who's Crystal?
Crystal is a really good friend that is also from Newark, New Jersey. Also a Cooperman scholar, very successful, and she is our missing piece to our puzzle. But she also has helped us a lot in this journey.
All right, we'll get Crystal. Maybe I'll do a conversation with Crystal. You know, she'll be like, I need to share. I'll do a short one with Crystal if she's open to it. So I love that. Well, Crystal, you are missed greatly here today and clearly loved and appreciated. So thank you, everybody. Today I have been with 3 students from Franklin Marshall College, 3 first-generation, dynamic, fascinating, interesting, really wonderful open students. Thank you, Melanie and Diamond and Hermela. And for anybody who has questions, please reach out to them. I'm Harlan Cohen. This is Before College TV. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody. We should have done that. Here, let me just, maybe I'll add this, I'll edit this in. You know, Hermela, you were mentioning that F&M is really wonderful when it comes to the financial piece. Explain that to me.
Yeah, so one of the biggest reasons that I chose F&M was the financial aid that I received. I am going to college. So far, I don't have any loans, and I'm paying like a couple thousand out of pocket, but F&M meets 100% need. But it does include loans. So also knowing that schools that meet 100% need have different variations. There's ones that include loans, ones that don't, based on your parents' income. So I think please think about applying to Franklin and Marshall College. It's about a 34% acceptance rate, but there's other factors that can help you. I guess come to our amazing school. It has so many different resources once you get there, and we would love to welcome you.
That's awesome. Thanks for including that. I really appreciate it.